There was something different about Grandma's house. You can't fully explain it. You just felt it. The moment you stepped inside, everything felt calmer, softer, safer. The smell of cooked food, the sound of the old electric fan, the television playing too loudly in the background, the warm light coming through the windows. Somehow, it felt like heaven. Not because the house was perfect. Most grandma houses were simple. Old walls, plastic chairs, tiny kitchens, worn-out furniture. But none of that mattered, because love lived there. And when you were a child, you never realized those moments were becoming memories. You thought they would last forever. You thought Grandma would always be there, waiting by the door, asking if you were hungry. And somehow, she always knew you were. Food tasted different there. Even the simplest meals felt special. Rice tasted warmer. Soup tasted richer. Snacks somehow tasted better than anywhere else. Maybe because it wasn't really about the food. It was about being cared for. Grandma never let you leave hungry, even when she was tired, even when money was tight. She still gave you the biggest piece. As children, we thought that was normal. Now we realize that was love. Grandma's house had its own world, the old clock on the wall, the smell of laundry drying outside, the faded curtains moving with the wind, the random candies hidden inside jars. You remember sitting on the floor watching television, listening to adults talk in the background, hearing laughter from the kitchen. Back then, you didn't realize how special those sounds were. Now silence feels louder. Grandma told stories nobody else told. Stories about hard times, about sacrifice, about surviving life when things were difficult. As kids, we barely listened. Now we wish we listened more, because one day those stories disappear with them. And suddenly, you would give anything to hear them one more time. Grandmas had a quiet kind of love. They showed it through actions, by cutting fruit for you, saving food for you, folding your clothes, waiting for you to come home safely. They rarely talked about their pain. You never noticed how tired they were, the shaking hands, the silent exhaustion hidden behind their smiles. As children, we thought they would always be there, like time could never touch them. But one of the saddest parts of growing up is realizing your grandparents got old while you were busy growing up. Nothing felt warmer than Grandma's house during holidays. The noise, the laughter, the smell of food everywhere. The house felt full of life. Back then, you didn't care about money or stress. You were just happy. And somehow, those simple days became the richest memories of your life, not because you had everything, because you had everyone. Then one day, you come back years later, and suddenly, everything feels smaller. The hallway, the kitchen, the rooms. You realize the house didn't shrink, you just grew up. But something else feels different too. The energy changed. Maybe Grandma moves slower now, or maybe she's no longer there at all. And that's when it hits the hardest. The house was never the magic. She was. Her voice, her warmth, her presence, her love. Without her, the house becomes painfully quiet. There are little things that suddenly hurt later. Seeing her empty chair, smelling food that reminds you of her, hearing a song she used to hum. Sometimes grief arrives quietly, through tiny reminders. You suddenly remember how she called your name. That's the strange thing about nostalgia. It feels warm and painful at the same time. The hardest truth is this: we never know something is the last time, the last meal, the last holiday, the last hug. Life doesn't announce those moments. They just happen quietly, and later you replay them in your mind. People say they miss childhood, but what we really miss is how loved we felt. At Grandma's house, you were loved simply because you existed. And in today's world, that kind of love feels rare. If your grandma is still here, call her, visit her, spend time while you still can. Because one day, Those ordinary moments will become priceless memories. Grandma's house felt like heaven because it was one of the purest forms of love many of us will ever experience. Inside that house, someone loved you completely, and years later, that's what we remember most, the warmth, the safety, the peace.